Okay, now that we've gone through addition, subtraction, multiplication, stuff like that, we're now going to be doing exponents. So, when you were knee-high to a grasshopper tall, they had a problem such as that. And you're like, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Right, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4. You get 8. Well, they told you about this wonderful new contraption called multiplication. 2 times 4. 4 times 2 equals 8. And what really happened was they counted up the number of 2's that went into that. And they said, you got 4 times that. So you have 2, 4 times, and that gives you 8. Same sort of thing happens when you have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. They still have 2, and it's 4 times, only this time they're timesing each other. They're not adding to each other. And so they put the 4 somewhere else. So right there,
this is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Here it is with exponents. Here it is when we expand it all out, and when we multiply it all together, we get 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 to the 4th is 16. As another example, we would have 7 to the 3rd power. That's in exponential notation. That would be 7 times 7 times 7. Which gives us 7 times 7 is 49. And we're going to times by 7 one more time. 7 times 9 is 63. Carry the 6. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 6 is a 34. So 7 to the 3rd power is 343.
When we write something such as 2 plus 3 times 8 to the 2nd power, we realize that reading it left to right, just like normal, 2 plus 3 times 8. Some people might actually do that. 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 times 8 is 40. 40 to the 2nd power, or squared, is big. That's not actually what's going on. Now, if you remember, this is 8 times 8. So we actually have to take care of the exponents very first. You got to take care of that because that's shorthand for multiplication. So you go 2 plus 3 times 64. Now, this one right here, if you went 2 plus 3 is 5 and then 5 times 64, note that this is shorthand for 64 plus 64 plus 64. So this actually has to be done first before we can add that 2 on. And so we get 192 plus 2. That tells us that we have to take care of multiplication and division before we can ever put on the addition and subtraction. So we get 194. What this is, making sure you take care of the exponents first and then the multiplication and then the addition and subtraction, this is called the order of operations. Now supposing I took this problem and I said, you know, I'm a teacher. I want to try to trick the students a little bit. They start getting this idea of, ooh, we have to take care of the exponents first, if there are any, then the multiplication and division, and then the addition and subtraction. But I said, no, I really want them to do 2 plus 3 first. Then I would use a grouping symbol. Right there. That is called a parenthesis. Interesting. If there's only one of them, it's a parenthesis. If there's 2 of them, it's a parentheses. And so we have the parenthesis. And if I put those in there, I've just grouped those together and said, hey, those are one number. So then you would definitely say, all right, so this is still 64 over here. And this is now 5. 5 times 64, and we get 320. We could put it in a different way. We could do something like this. That would be 2 plus 3 times 8 is 24 squared. So we have 2 plus 24 squared. Have to go 24 times 24. And you end up with 576, 578. So you know that the grouping symbols we have here can change the outcome of the number. So you need to make sure that if there are any parentheses, we take care of those first. Now I need to say something about some of the terminology I've used here. Notice when I talked about 7 to the 3rd power, I inadvertently said 7 cubed. And over here I said 24 squared. For some of you that aren't familiar with exponents, that might have been a little bit surprising. For example, squared. Why do we call that squared? And that one cubed. Well, when I was in school, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Square doesn't have 4 sides. Why are we doing it with a 2? They'll take this and they'll say 5 times 5. This actually goes back to, if I took 5 inches, 5 feet, 5 meters, whatever you got, you take 5 and you make a square out of 5. There's 5 here and 5 there and 5 there. When you find the area of this, you're going to take 5 times 5. Gives you 25. That's where they get this, 5 squared. If you have a cube made out of 5s, and you want to find out the volume, how much could this cube hold? Well, you would take 5 times 5 times 5, or 5 to the 3rd power. So you're welcome to use that. If it's to the 2 power, it's squared. If it's here, it's cubed. And it is actually measuring the dimension of the object that you are finding.
To the boards! Hello and welcome to the boards. It's time for you to practice 4 order of operation problems. What we'd like you to do is use the 4 procedures to try these 4 problems. First, work inside a parenthesis if you have some. Second, compute your exponents. Third, multiply and divide from left to right. And fourth, add and subtract from left to right. Go ahead and pause the video now and try each of these problems. Unpause it when you're done to see how you did. Okay, let's start with number 1. I have 5 plus 6 times 2 minus 3. There is an order that you must follow to get this problem correct. So let's go through the procedures. Step number 1, work inside parenthesis. Well, we don't have parenthesis, so we don't need to worry about that. Compute exponents? No exponents, so let's keep going on. Next one is multiply and divide from left to right. I do have a multiply, so I want to write that out. 5 plus 6 times 2 is 12 minus 3. The last step is add and subtract from left to right. So I'm going to, from left to right, 5 plus 12 is 17. Then I'm going to subtract the 3 to get 14. Excellent. Let's try number 2. Again, we're going to follow the same steps. Let's clear those out. Step number 1. Work inside the parenthesis first. We don't have parenthesis. Compute exponents. We do have exponents here, 5 squared. So I'm going to get 3 times 2 minus 5 squared is 25. Now we're going to multiply and divide from left to right. There's a 3 times 2 here, so I get 6 minus 25. Now we add and subtract from left to right. 6 minus 25. I'm going to put the bigger number on top, and we're going to subtract. 5 minus 6 I can't do. So I'm going to borrow. I get 15 minus 6, that's 9. Bring down the 1. My answer is 19. But since the bigger number was minus, the strongest number wins. Negative 19 is my answer. Excellent. Let's try number 3. In number 3, we do have parentheses. So we're going to start there first. Work inside parentheses. 1 plus 0.05, that's 1.05 squared. And there's 1,000 here. We then need to compute exponents. So 1.05 squared, that's 1.05 times 1.05. Let's see, 5 times 5 is 25. Bring down the 2 and 5. Then a 0, a 0, a 5, a 0, and a 1. So I get 5, 2, 0, 1, 1. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. So I get 1.1025. You can also check that with your calculator, now that we can use calculators in the class. And I get that, and I'm going to have to times that by 1,000. So that's going to move the decimal place over 3 spots when I times it by 1,000. A number right next to a parenthesis means times. So I move it 3 places over, and my final answer is 1102.5. Nice. Okay, let's try number 4.
Number 4. It says to work inside parenthesis first. So 5 minus 3. 5 minus 3 is 2. So I get 8 plus 2 to the 5th power plus 6 divided by 3 times 2. I'm now going to compute the exponents. 2 to the 5th power. Well, that would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And when you multiply that all out, I get 32. Now we're going to multiply and divide from left to right. So I'm multiplying and dividing. Ooh, this division comes first, so I'm going to do that first. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now I'm going to multiply the 2 times the 2 to get 4. So I've got 8 plus 32 plus 4. Now we can just add those all together. 8 plus 32, that's 40, plus 4 more is 44. Great work! Thanks for working hard on these order of operation problems.
So, now we have one more thing with exponents to do. And that is show you how they actually help you in saving money or hurt you if you're not saving money. If you have a savings account and it has, say, $50 in it, and this savings account earns 5%. Every year, it earns 5%. We're going to see what happens to the savings account here. You have $50 in the savings account, and it earns 0.05 times 50. Here we have 5% of $50. So that's going to be $2.50. So we have 50 plus that. So at the end of the first year, we have $52.50. Kind of nice there. So we now have $52.50 in the account. And we're going to add to it 5% times $52.50. Now in this one, you may have to do it by hand. $52.50. And when you times those out, let's go ahead and times those. We should get 2, what is it? It's 10 plus a 2 is 12. One, two, three, 4 decimal places. So about $2.63. Notice we just made more this year than we did last year. It's because we added that to the whole amount. So now when we come over here, we now are going to have $55.13. And it's going to keep going like this. You're going to keep adding on the very next you're going to take a percent of that amount. This is why savings grows, and it's growing exponentially. And here's kind of a shortcut as to how you'll do this. This will help you with your Excel projects. So you're going to take $50, and here's your, that's going to represent that, yeah, we're starting with our original amount, and then you're going to add 5% of it every year. Well, the next year, you're going to take itself plus 5%, and the next year, itself plus 5%. And so the shorthand for this is if you're going to put it in here 10 years, you're going to go just like that. You say, okay, so I've got 50, I'm going to take 1.05 to the 10th power. And it's going to allow you to do all that multiplication shorthand. Since you're going to be using calculators a great deal, we're going to have to discuss those. You have a calculator here, and it has the numbers just like this. And there are some other buttons on there that you should know. There's usually a button, sometimes around here, sometimes not, that looks like that. That allows you to do all the exponents. There's usually a button somewhere around here, looks like that. This is the squared button. There's a button like that one right there.
All calculators will look a little bit different. So let's look at the one that comes on the computer. For the one computer that I have, you'll notice this is a very simple calculator, but it doesn't have all those buttons. Often they are hidden up here, so you can use a scientific calculator, and you'll see there they are. There's a cube root button and a square root button, and here's the exponents that you can use. So let's punch in one so that you can see how it works. If you do something like 5 to the 4th power, you could hit 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, and you'll get something. Or you can hit the calculator, 5x to the y power 4, and you'll see there's this little caret here, and that may be the symbol on some calculators that you use. And when you hit equals, it will give us 625. If we took the example of the savings account and did 50 times 1.05 all to the 10th power, well, let's punch that in the calculator and see how that would work. Take 1.05 all to the, that's the exponent, 10th power, hit equals, and you get this number here, times by 50 equals, and we get 81.44. So whichever calculator you choose to use, this is something that you should become familiar with, and if you're going to hit to the 2nd power or to the 3rd power, there are special buttons there, like 5 to the 2nd power or 5 to the 3rd power. We'll automatically put those in there for you. Get used to it and use your calculator as a very warm and close friend.